Welcome to Digital Academy. Hope you're doing well. And I got an interesting one here called When Do People or Why Do People Join Cults? Okay, so an important point on this is your best defense against cultish thinking is understanding some of the common trends in these type of situations and looking at some historical examples to, prepare your, well, the mind that's aware of methods of manipulation is less easily manipulated. Alrighty. Thanks for checking this out. Let's get into the video. Cheers. Digital Academy, what's up? It's a lemonade type of day.
When Reverend Jim Jones founded the People's Temple in 1955, few could have imagined its horrifying end. This progressive religious movement rose in popularity and gained support from some of San Francisco's most prominent politicians. But in 1977, amidst revelations of brainwashing and abuse, Jones moved with several hundred followers to establish the commune of Jonestown in Guyana. Billed as a utopian paradise, the colony was more like a prison camp. And when a congressional delegation arrived to investigate its conditions, Jones executed his final plan. On November 18, 1978, 909 men, women, and children died after being forced to drink poisoned Flavor Aid. That grisly image has since been...
If you've ever heard somebody make the reference, "Don't drink the Kool-Aid," that's a reference to this. Don't buy into the cult so much that this is the most extreme example where they all committed a ritualistic suicide, but in Jonestown. But that "don't drink the Kool-Aid," I don't know if it was Kool-Aid, it was a poison juice.
Immortalized as shorthand slang for single-minded, cult-like thinking. They drank the Kool-Aid. Today, there are thousands of cults around the world. It's important to note two things about them. First, not all cults are religious. Some are political, therapy-based, focused on self-improvement, or otherwise. And on the flip side, not all new religions are what we're referring to as cults. So what exactly defines our modern understanding of cults, and why do people join them? Broadly speaking, a cult is a group or movement with a shared commitment to a usually extreme ideology that's typically embodied in a charismatic leader. And while few turn out as deadly as Jonestown or Heaven's Gate, which ended in a mass suicide of 39 people in 1997, most cults share some basic characteristics.
I think that was the one where they all thought that if they took their own lives, when the Hale-Bopp comet was close, that they would consciously, out of context, it seems like such crazy ideas, right? But this is kind of one of the points, is that it's often pushed by an incredibly charismatic leader, like a guy like Jim Jones, who would, like they started this video saying, like he was a well-liked socialite in, I think they said San Francisco, and politicians and all these people liked him, but it was that likability that also allowed him to manipulate. I like how they said too, it's not always within the context of there's not always a religious tone to it.
Cult requires a high level of commitment from its members and maintains a strict hierarchy, separating unsuspecting supporters and recruits from the inner workings. It claims to provide answers to life's biggest questions through its doctrine, along with the required...
Yeah, it's like I don't want to just say a replacement for religion, but in a society that's become ever more secular, you can see how it's answering or presenting potential rationale and justification and meaning and purpose around some of these important things, like what does success look like, what should we be doing and working, and what's love and happiness, and how should we understand death, and what's the position of faith and family in our lives. And that was Carl Jung's, or no, I'm sorry, that was Nietzsche's big point. You've heard other people say this, like people quote him as saying God is dead, but his full quote was something like God is dead, and there's not enough water to wash away the blood that'll come after. He said it differently than that, but basically predicting the 2 world wars. And it's this idea of like, okay, great, you postmodernists who are so smart, you destroyed religion. The philosophers destroyed religion. This is kind of a butchered Nietzsche, you know. But what they did then is they opened a vacuum, and then different things become religion for people, and different things, oftentimes politics, fill that mythos.
Recipe for change that shapes a new member into a true believer. And most importantly, it uses both formal and informal systems of influence and control to keep members obedient, with little tolerance for internal disagreement or external scrutiny.
Yep.
You might wonder whether some of these descriptions might also apply to established religions. In fact, the word cultus originally described people who cultivated the worship of certain gods by performing rituals and maintaining temples. But in time, it came to mean excessive devotion. Many religions,
because obviously occult and cult are similar root words,
began as cults, but integrated into the fabric of the larger society as they grew. A modern cult, by contrast, separates its members from others. Rather than providing guidelines for members to live better lives, a cult seeks to directly control them, from personal and family relationships to financial assets and living arrangements. Cults also demand obedience to human leaders, who tend to be highly persuasive people with authoritarian and narcissistic streaks motivated by money, sex, power, or all three. While a cult leader uses personal charisma to attract initial followers, further expansion works like a pyramid scheme, with earlier members recruiting new ones. Cults are skilled at knowing whom to target, often focusing on those new to an area, or who have recently undergone some personal or professional loss.
Right, and that's the predatory aspect of it. Right, it's almost the flip of what you would do if you were like a good psychologist or social worker, where you see someone that's vulnerable and you use your understanding of the human mind to help them get better. It's like, no, well, or you could use it to manipulate and take advantage of somebody in a hurt place. Right, so it's kind of applied dark psychology in a way. It's weird to say it like that, but it is.
Loneliness and a desire for meaning make one susceptible to friendly people offering community. The recruitment process can be subtle, sometimes taking months to establish a relationship. In fact, more than 2/3 of cult members are recruited by a friend, family member, or coworker, whose invitations are harder to refuse. Once in the cult, members are subjected to multiple forms of indoctrination. Some play on our natural inclination to mimic social behaviors or follow orders.
Right, so a doctrine is like a set of ideas. So you probably already know this, but indoctrination then means like basically getting brainwashed into a set of ideas, having that doctrine come inside you. You've been indoctrinated.
Other methods may be more intense, using techniques of coercive persuasion involving guilt, shame, and fear.
Yep.
And in many cases, members may willingly submit out of desire to belong and to attain the promised rewards. The cult environment discourages critical thinking, making it hard to voice doubts when
the discouraging critical thinking is a huge piece. You're not allowed to ask questions. You're not allowed to say that.
Everyone around you is modeling absolute faith. The resulting internal conflict, known as cognitive dissonance, keeps you trapped.
Cognitive dissonance, it's like where you're seeing all these trusted people around you saying things that you don't think can be true. And then you start saying them too because you want to fit in. But it's at a certain deep level, it stresses you that you're doing that. Right? So in psychology, they use the word cognitive dissonance is kind of used to talk about that internal tension of you're performing one way that's not a true reflection of how you think. You're seeing that you're acting in this kind of performative way or whatever, and it's stressing you out at a deep unconscious level.
As each compromise makes it more painful to admit you've been deceived. And though most cults don't lead members to their death, they can still be harmful. By denying basic freedoms of thought, speech, and association, cults stunt their members' psychological and emotional growth, a particular problem for children who are deprived of
Yes.
normal developmental activities and milestones. Nevertheless, many cult members eventually find a way out, whether through their own realizations, the help of family and friends, or when the cult falls apart due to external pressure or scandals. Many cults may be hard to identify, and for some, their beliefs, no matter how strange, are protected under religious freedom. But when their practices involve harassment, threats, illegal activities, or abuse, the law can intervene. Believing in something should not come at the cost of your family and friends. And if someone tells you to sacrifice your relationships or morality for the greater good, they're most likely exploiting you for their own.
There you go. Why do people join cults? Love you guys. Take care and have a great day.